All right. Um, I know I still got to do four, but I want to do this one first, so it's kind of a little mixed up. But this will, because what's really bothering me right now is I keep hearing over and over and over, why can't black people prosper? Why can't we? Why don't black folks know to buy from each other? Look, if you're asking this kind of questions, you lack a little bit of understanding and you need to get it quickly. Because the longer you keep trying, you're like a hamster on a wheel. You're doing all this running, but you're not going anywhere. You don't know why. But you're banging your head again, and you're also banging your head against that wall, trying to figure out. Here's your number one problem: you cannot dismiss scripture. And as long as you dismiss scripture and talk about black power and all this stuff, you will lose it every time. And you will be frustrated for no apparent reason. All right, understand. Now, this is speaking, we are living under laws specifically on keeping our people submissive. Okay? And the sooner we have an understanding of some of these laws, it's not just the South. Because a lot of people in New York and Detroit, y'all are really a bunch of blockheads. You're arrogant. You need to humble yourself because y'all don't understand. These are not laws that were just in Georgia and Alabama. These were laws that were up there too. All right? The so-called United States individually are considered Confederate states. New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, all right, all are considered Confederate states, which is the same thing as Union states. It's all Confederacy means. Study, study, study. All right, but here's the thing. Why can't we prosper? As I stated, you have to go to scripture. You have to. Because it's the only thing that answers why we're in the state we are in. Why is it that a Hamite can come over here and prosper and we're over here and we can't? Why does it seem like our people behave as crabs in a barrel? But no one is answering, well, what laws have we been? What is going on with us spiritually? They're only going by the flesh and they're observing through carnal eyes and they cannot see any deeper than that. But of course, those of us who know understand we are under spiritual curses. Deuteronomy 28:20 states, the Lord shall send upon you cursing, vexation, confusion, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The main wickedness he's getting on is the fact that we forsook him. All these other things have come upon us. I mean, they're going out and telling y'all week after week after week after week. And yeah, there's a lot of ridiculous infighting going on, but you have to learn how to ignore it. Because there's a whole lot of information that you are missing because you're looking at the surface. You're not, you call yourself spiritual, but you're not. Okay, if all you can see is the infighting and can't even understand why it's going on, because believe it or not, the Most High does not want everybody to know. Only a third. That's it. The rest, y'all supposed to stay confused. You're supposed to be constantly wondering why everything is the way it is and never coming to an answer. Never desiring a real answer when it comes to you because it's confusing to you. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. That means even the things we buy and sell. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thee, upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Okay? Do not dismiss scripture. And for those of you in the church system, Babylonian system, all churches are Babylonian. All these buildings. They're Egyptian. They're Roman. And if you don't understand where the word Christ came from, you understand nothing. Alright, there are numerous slave laws that affect us even to this day. What I have chosen to do is to isolate some main ones that specifically deal with how we treat each other and why police can do certain things they do to us and why we have a hard time buying from each other. Okay? Alright. Punishment for free persons of color for inveiling slaves. That means harboring or protecting. If any free person of color commits the offense of inveiling or enticing away any slave or slaves for the purpose of and with the intention to aid and assist such slave or slaves leaving the service of his or her owner or owners, or in going to another state, such person so offending shall, for each and every such offense, on conviction, be confined to the penitentiary at hard labor for one. Okay, so it's like you got each one is going to count as a count against you. All right, that is why when they're doing it. Don't snitch. It had nothing to do with snitching or anything. Because it was a crime for a slave to run away. It's a criminal act. And it's a criminal act to protect such slave. Punishment for circulating incendiary documents. If any slave, Negro, mestizo, which is the same thing as mulatto in Spanish, or a free person of color, or any other person. Now, when they say any other person, they also mean, well, if a white person does it, oh well. Shall circulate, bring, or cause to be circulated, or brought into this state, or aid or assist in any manner, or be instrumental in aiding or assisting in the circulation, or bringing into this state. Now, this is mainly Georgia law, but these are indicative of laws throughout the Caribbean, the rest of the north and southern state, what we would now call north and southern states, and laws throughout Central and South America. The European laws brought upon in the islands are obviously much older than these laws. All right. Basically, you're going to be punished by death if you are a Negro or a free person of color doing these things, or a slave doing these things. you will be killed. Even to this day, we are more likely to get in trouble for reading scripture out loud in public than white folks do for talking about taking us and lynching us, which they have done so. That's history, people. You need to go and look up your history. Just because the calendar changed does not mean they have changed. And these laws are still in existence. They just now call them martial laws. Which there was a Judge Marshall, which I'm going to bring that up too. How we got the term martial law. Alright. Punishment for teaching slaves or free persons of color to read. Basically, you would get a whipping or a fine or a fine. Generally, if you're a person of color, you would get a fine. The person being taught to read shall be fined also. They don't mention it clearly in here. Basically, what they're saying, if any slave, Negro, or free person of color, or any white person shall teach any other Negro, slave, or free person of color to read or write, either written or printed characters, the said free person of color, mind you, and slave, this doesn't pertain to white folks, shall be punished by fine and whipping, or fine or whipping at the discretion of the court. Guess what the free person of color got? Both. The slave, of course, didn't have any money, so they got just the whipping. And if you couldn't pay the fine, you got an even deeper punishment. All right. Come on. All right. Punishment for free persons of color for trading with slaves. Now, this is where it really gets to us. And this is why we have such a hard time purchasing anything or supporting our own each other's businesses. Especially when you consider they charge us more and make it very difficult. There are a lot of so-called products out there created by blacks, but especially hair products such as stuff for our hair and things like that. The Koreans are real tricky with that. They will take your idea, you're selling it in the stores that they come and buy in your neighborhoods, and they may start out selling high quality products that our people made, but slowly over time they stop purchasing from those black owned companies. Okay? And then all of a sudden they just purchase from their own people. Very funny. But anyway, as pertaining to us, if any slave or slaves or free persons of color shall purchase or buy any commodities from any slave or slaves, he, she, or they, on conviction thereof, before any justice of the peace, contrary to the true intent and meaning of this act, shall receive on his or her or their back 39 lashes. Why 39? Good question. Anyway, maybe because 3 plus 9 equals 12 equals 3. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Anyway, and 3 and 9 are both witchcraft or Illuminatus number. I just say witchcraft. It's just easier that way. Now mind you, you don't get representation in court. Even to this day, when they say, can you, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you. You're getting a court appointed lawyer, meaning you're getting a lawyer that is going to act in the best interest of the court, not you. But most black folks haven't figured that out yet. Some have. And they go and they study Latin. They study Roman law. Because these laws are actually repeats of Roman laws. In spite of what these white folks will tell you, this country or this district was never intended for freedom of religion. Whatever that, it was always intended to build up, to continue the Roman Empire. That's what the Renaissance, which means rebirth. What are you rebirthing if something did not exist? Reconstruction. What are you constructing if something did not exist? What are you trying to restore? Okay, I already did a video on that word before. I'm not going to repeat it now, but think, people, think. Punishment of slaves for harboring slaves. Basically, any free person who does so, you're going to either, you're going to get whipped, but not to the point, well, corporal whipping, but not to the point of life or limb. But as the justices see fit, which means you might be maimed, or at least close to it. And if any free person shall forfeit the sum of 30 shillings, who else was sold for 30 pieces of silver? I wonder. For the first day, and 3 shillings for every day such slaves shall have been absent from his or her owner or employer, to be recovered and applied as this act and thereafter directed. This fee was applied to those slaves, or rather free persons of color, who would harbor slaves. They would have to pay that slave's owner for every day that slave is missing. Even though work was more plentiful for free men of color in the South than it was in the North because of the mass migration of Europeans over here. Okay, y'all parents came here under contract. Y'all need to understand your own history. Your parents sold y'all out long before y'all got here, too. Our parents didn't sell us out. We got sold because our ancestors chose to go after other gods. Different story, different path. You're supposed to be a slave here. I'm not. Okay. Punishment of free persons of color for harboring slaves. Now, I know it's like, why did you repeat this again? First you had it at 13, now you have it at 14. Because you're taking away, the way they looked at it, that slave was money. That slave was money. Okay? Basically, you're going to be subject to the same punishment as slaves are under said section of this recited act. You're going to get punished. You're going to get the same punishment. Constables authorized to search suspected premises for fugitive slaves. Now that even goes on even to this day, because remember, harboring running away from slavery was considered a crime. Whereas in scripture, if a slave ran away, we were told to leave them. Let them go. You don't want them back. Let them go on their way. This society throws out scripture and says, well, you run away, we're going to punish you. Okay? But they could go into your property under the suspicion And a lot of times they would just go in there just to destroy stuff just because they can. Okay? Persons of color not allowed to preach or exhort without written license. This is where we get the paid or the authorized preacher from. You'll have these church folks go up to folks and they'll say, well, who ordained you? What church or what preacher or what school did you get your um, degree license from? Who called you a reverend? They never said they were reverends. They never call themselves preachers. They go out and they preach the word. Very different. Very different. Regardless of whether or not you agree with what they say or perhaps even how they say it. It is what it is. Because some people need to hear it harshly and others, because you're dealing with a demon inside of you that's got demons that have lived in you since you were born and have influenced your thinking since you were born. So those demons are not going to go nicely. That's why they wanted to control what the preacher said. So they had to have a license. They had to be authorized. Do you have permission to preach that? Oh, you can't read the book of Exodus like that. You definitely cannot read Deuteronomy 28 to them. No, you must stick with the New Testament, especially John 3:16. Don't read what's before it that states that he's talking to the people of Judah. Of his people of Israel, the house of Jacob. Do not read that. You can only read John 3:16 or any of the scriptures that says it is good to be a slave. Anyway, oh goodness. Again, they have to reiterate this. Punishments for preaching or exhorting without a license. Pretty soon, they're going to be requiring folks to have licenses before they can go out and preach. They're like people before, when people who homeschool their children, the first thing they're asked, well, where did you get your degree? Who authorized you to teach your own children? Well, dang gummit, I gave birth to them. I could teach them how to talk and walk. I could teach them. And talking and walking is not that easy, by the way. Any free person of color offending against this person to be liable on conviction for the first offense to imprisonment at the discretion of the court and to the penalty not exceeding $500 to be levied. $500 to be levied on the property of the person of color. Now, back in the 1840s, that was a lot of money. Okay? If this is insufficient, meaning they don't have enough property, he shall be sentenced to be whipped and imprisoned at the discretion of the court, provided such imprisonment shall not exceed 6 months, and no whipping shall exceed 39 lashes. All right, here's the gotcha. They could say, well, for each count of your preaching without a license, you get 6 months in jail. Doggone, you could be in jail for the rest of your life. Because they're never going to get you on the first count. It says 6 months for, this is the gotcha. Okay? It does not say whether it's for each offense or for all offenses. It just says for preaching without a license. And considering they like to interpret things to suit their whim, My guess, they probably did it for each offense or each person that listened to you, so they would count that as an offense. Okay, whoever says these laws don't affect us to this day is ignorant of spiritual things. Okay? Um, See, my sister will ask me questions, but the way in which she asks them, I won't tell her what's going on in scripture because she's asking I can hear that little devil in her that's asking her. She asks it with a grin or with uh, a smirk. And so I won't. There's a lot of people I won't tell anything to because I'm not going to waste my time trying to show you what's in scripture and you really don't care. What you want to do is you want to find a way to mock. You don't even want to go into scripture. 9 times out of 10, they tell you don't even pick up the Bible. So when I've had people call me and they would ask me things and I would tell them, and I would spend hours on the phone with them. And then what do? They turn right back around and go and ask their preacher. Because I'm not ordained, which doesn't matter to me. Or because I don't have a degree in biblical history. Or history, period. So what do I know? Oh, well, I can read. I can reason. And I don't take everything at face value. Not when it comes to the things of this world. And so I expect, honestly, I don't expect many people to look at this, but I do, I expect at least 1 or 2 comments that will come my way where those laws and I said, prove it that these laws have been done away with. Prove it. Prove to me that the laws in the 5 books of the Torah have been done away with. Prove it. Stop sitting up here with your ignorant behind telling me, well, Jesus Christ came to do away with the law. No, he did not. And since you're the one want to say that it didn't happen or it doesn't exist anymore, I'm going to put the burden of proof on you. I've gotten to the point where I'm no longer going to sit up here and prove what I've already proven. I just have started asking people, prove it. Prove it. Show me in scripture. Well, this book I read. No. Show me in scripture. Well, okay, well, let's go back and read, and then they'll show me something. Okay, well, let's read what happened before and what happened after. I don't want to do that. Why not? You said you can prove it. Prove it. And that's really the kind of people we have to be. Males and females. Can't go around. This is not the time to be. No, we're not supposed to be out there preaching, but we're not supposed to be sitting back. I don't know. Please. This is how you get trapped. Because who's the first one they made ignorant? Females. So I'm mainly exhorting women, study. Study history. Study the law. Go to, the best thing to do is to go to a used book store and buy yourself a Black's Law Dictionary. Okay? I don't mean black as in what they now call us. It's the name of it. a Black's Law Dictionary and study and read the words. Pick yourself up. Go, and if you have access to an Oxford English dictionary, that is the best. If you don't, I don't have $600. If you have, most people who have gone to school